The morning sun cast long shadows across Naval Amphibious Base Coronado as Marcus Chen adjusted his gear one final time. The salty Pacific breeze carried the familiar sounds of military training, shouted commands, the rhythmic splash of boats cutting through waves, and the distant crack of rifle fire from the shooting ranges. At 28, Marcus had already proven himself as one of the Navy's most skilled marksmen, but today would test every lesson he'd learned in his 12 years of service. Marcus wasn't built like the stereotypical Navy SEAL. Standing at 5'8" with a lean frame that spoke more of endurance than raw power, he often found himself the target of good-natured ribbing from his teammates. His quiet demeanor and preference for careful observation over loud bravado made some question whether he truly belonged among the elite warriors of SEAL Team 7. But those who had served alongside him knew better. Behind his calm exterior lay the heart of a warrior and the steady hands of a master craftsman. The mission briefing had been straightforward enough. Intelligence suggested that a high-value target would be moving along the coastline of a hostile territory under cover of darkness. The team's job was to establish overwatch positions and gather intelligence, with Marcus serving as the designated marksman. What made this operation unique was the approach. They would need to swim nearly 2 miles through rough seas to reach their observation point undetected. "You sure about this, Chen?" called out Lieutenant Jake Morrison, the team leader whose broad shoulders and commanding presence made him a natural leader. Morrison had served 3 tours in Afghanistan and earned his trident through sheer determination and tactical brilliance. His withered face bore the scars of countless operations, but his eyes still held the sharp focus that had kept his team alive through some of the Navy's most dangerous missions. 2 miles is a long way to swim with full gear, Morrison continued, his tone carrying both concern and challenge. Especially with that rifle case strapped to your back. You'll be carrying an extra 40 pounds through choppy water. Marcus nodded, understanding the practical concerns. His custom-built sniper rifle, a modified State Route 25 that he'd personally fine-tuned over countless hours at the range, was indeed heavy. The waterproof case added bulk and drag that would make the swim significantly more challenging. But Marcus had trained for exactly this scenario, spending countless hours in the base pool and ocean, building the endurance and technique needed to handle long-distance swims with equipment. "I've done longer swims in training," Marcus replied simply, his voice carrying quiet confidence. "The rifle won't be a problem." Petty Officer First Class Tony Rodriguez, the team's explosives expert, laughed from where he was checking his own gear. Rodriguez was built like a linebacker, his muscular frame a testament to years of intense physical training. His easy smile and quick wit made him popular among the team, but his expertise with demolitions had saved their lives more times than anyone cared to count. "Come on, Marcus," Rodriguez said with a grin. 2 miles is serious distance. Even Olympic swimmers would struggle with that much gear. And that's in a pool, not the middle of the ocean with waves trying to drown you every few seconds. The team's communications specialist, Petty Officer Second Class David Kim, looked up from his radio equipment. Kim was the youngest member of the team at just 24, but his technical skills and calm under pressure had already earned him the respect of his more experienced teammates. His slight build and thoughtful manner often led people to underestimate him, much like Marcus himself. "The weather report shows 3-foot swells," Kim added, consulting his waterproof tablet. "That's going to make breathing pretty difficult, especially when you're already pushing your limits. Maybe we should consider the boat insertion instead." Marcus appreciated his teammates' concerns, but he also understood the tactical situation better than they realized. A boat insertion would require them to approach much closer to the shoreline, increasing the risk of detection. Swimming in from further out would allow them to maintain the element of surprise that was crucial to mission success. "The swim gives us the best chance of staying undetected," Marcus explained patiently. "A boat engine carries for miles over water, especially at night when sound travels further. If we want to maintain operational security, swimming is our best option." Gunnery Sergeant Mike Torres, the team's senior enlisted man and a veteran of more combat operations than anyone cared to count, studied Marcus with calculating eyes. Torres had seen too many young operators overestimate their abilities and put missions at risk. His job was to ensure that confidence didn't cross the line into dangerous overconfidence. "What's your swim time for 2 miles with full gear?" Torres asked directly. 1 hour, 15 minutes in calm water," Marcus replied without hesitation. "Add 15 minutes for sea conditions and current." Torres raised an eyebrow. Those were impressive times, even for a SEAL in peak condition. But times recorded in training didn't always translate to real-world performance under operational stress. That's assuming everything goes perfectly, Torres pointed out. What happens if you hit strong currents, or if the weather gets worse than forecasted? What happens if you're exhausted by the time you reach the target area and can't make the shots that might be required? The question struck at the heart of the team's concerns. A sniper was only as good as his ability to make precise shots under pressure. If the swim compromised Marcus's shooting ability, it could jeopardize the entire mission. Marcus understood their skepticism, but he also knew his own capabilities better than anyone else. He had spent years developing not just his marksmanship skills, but his physical conditioning and mental preparation. Swimming had been part of his training regimen since his early days in the Navy, and he had consistently pushed himself to higher standards. "I've trained for exactly this scenario," Marcus said firmly. Long swims followed immediately by precision shooting. "My accuracy doesn't degrade significantly even after extended physical exertion." Chief Petty Officer Sarah Martinez, the team's medic and one of the few women to earn her place among the SEALs, looked up from her medical kit. Martinez had saved more lives than she could count, and her medical expertise made her opinion on physical capabilities particularly valuable. "Exhaustion affects fine motor control," Martinez pointed out clinically. "Even if you think you're ready, your hands might not be as steady as you need them to be. We can't afford to miss if this goes kinetic." Marcus nodded, acknowledging the valid concern. But he also knew that his training had specifically addressed this issue. Hours spent at the shooting range immediately after intense physical training had taught him to control his breathing and steady his hands even when his body was pushed to its limits. "I understand the concern," Marcus replied. "But I've tested this extensively in training. My shooting accuracy remains consistent even after extended physical stress." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Commander Patricia Hayes, the mission commander whose reputation for strategic thinking and operational excellence had made her one of the youngest officers to lead SEAL operations. Hayes was known for her meticulous planning and her ability to make tough decisions under pressure. "Gentlemen, ladies," Hayes said as she approached the team. "I've been monitoring weather conditions and intelligence updates. The window for this operation is narrowing. We need to make a final decision on insertion method." The team gathered around as Hayes spread out nautical charts and satellite imagery on a nearby table. The target area was clearly marked, along with known patrol routes and surveillance positions. "Current intelligence suggests increased patrol activity along the coastline," Hayes explained. "A boat insertion would put us at significant risk of detection. However, the swim distance has increased to approximately 2.3 miles due to current conditions." The additional distance made the swim even more challenging, and Marcus could see the concern in his teammates' eyes. 2.3 miles with full gear and a heavy rifle case would test even the most experienced swimmer. "What's the mission timeline?" Marcus asked, studying the charts carefully. "Target is expected to move through the area between 2200 and 2400 hours, Hayes replied. "That gives us a narrow window for positioning and observation. If we miss this opportunity, we may not get another chance for weeks." The pressure of the timeline added another layer of complexity to the decision. They couldn't afford delays or complications that might cause them to miss their window of opportunity. "Sir," Marcus said, addressing Hayes directly, "I can make the swim and maintain operational effectiveness. The team's concerns are valid, but I've trained specifically for this type of mission profile." Hayes studied Marcus for a long moment, weighing the risks and benefits of each approach. She had read his service record and knew his capabilities, but she also understood the team's concerns about pushing physical limits before a critical operation. "What's your confidence level on making precision shots after a 2+ mile swim in rough seas?" Hayes asked bluntly. "High confidence, sir," Marcus replied without hesitation. "I've trained extensively for exactly this scenario. My shooting accuracy remains consistent even after extended physical exertion." Rodriguez shook his head skeptically. "Marcus, I've seen guys who thought they could handle anything get humbled by Mother Ocean. 2 miles is no joke, especially carrying that rifle. And what happens if you cramp up halfway through?" Kim added. "We can't exactly call for a pickup in hostile waters." The debate continued for several more minutes, with team members raising valid concerns about the risks and challenges of the swim approach. Marcus listened carefully to each point, understanding that their skepticism came from a place of professional concern rather than personal doubt. Finally, Torres spoke up with the voice of experience. "Look, Chen's a good swimmer and a hell of a shot. But this isn't about individual capability. This is about mission success and team safety. If something goes wrong during that swim, we're all compromised." Marcus appreciated the sergeant's honest assessment, but he also knew that sometimes calculated risks were necessary for mission success. The boat insertion carried its own significant risks, and the swim approach offered tactical advantages that couldn't be ignored. "Sergeant Torres is right about the risks," Marcus acknowledged. "But the boat insertion puts the entire team at risk of detection. One patrol boat with thermal imaging could compromise the whole mission." Hayes nodded thoughtfully, clearly weighing multiple factors in her decision. As mission commander, she had to balance individual capabilities against overall mission requirements and team safety. "The intelligence value of this operation is extremely high," Hayes said finally. "If we can gather the required information, it could save hundreds of lives in future operations. But I won't authorize unnecessary risks." The weight of that statement settled over the team as they considered the broader implications of their mission. This wasn't just about proving individual capabilities or completing a challenging insertion. Lives depended on the intelligence they might gather. "What do you need from me to feel confident about this approach?" Marcus asked his teammates directly. Morrison stepped forward, his expression serious. "Prove it. Right here, right now. We'll time a 2-mile swim with full gear, then see how you shoot immediately afterward." It was a fair challenge, and Marcus knew it was the only way to address his team's legitimate concerns. Demonstrating his capabilities under controlled conditions would either validate his confidence or reveal limitations that could compromise the mission. "When do we start?" Marcus asked simply. Hayes checked her watch and considered the operational timeline. "We have 3 hours before final mission brief. That gives us time for a proper test and evaluation." The team quickly organized an impromptu training exercise, with Hayes authorizing the use of training ammunition and a portable shooting range that could be set up near the water. Marcus gathered his gear methodically, understanding that this test would determine not just his participation in the mission, but potentially the entire approach strategy. As he prepared for the swim, Marcus reflected on the path that had brought him to this moment. His journey to the SEALs had been unconventional, marked more by quiet determination than dramatic heroics. Born to immigrant parents who valued education over military service, Marcus had initially pursued engineering before finding his calling in the Navy. His parents, both successful professionals who had worked their entire lives to build a better future for their children, had been skeptical of his decision to leave college for military service. They couldn't understand why their academically gifted son would choose such a dangerous and uncertain path. But Marcus had found something in military service that he couldn't find in the classroom: a sense of purpose and belonging that transcended personal ambition. The discipline and precision required for marksmanship appealed to his analytical mind, while the physical challenges of SEAL training pushed him to discover capabilities he never knew he possessed. Now, as he stood on the edge of the Pacific Ocean preparing for a test that could define his career, Marcus felt the familiar calm that always settled over him before significant challenges. His teammates' skepticism didn't anger or discourage him; it motivated him to prove that quiet determination could be just as powerful as loud confidence. The setting sun painted the sky in brilliant oranges and purples as Marcus made final adjustments to his gear. The rifle case was secured tightly to his back, its weight familiar and reassuring. His teammates gathered on the beach, some still expressing doubts while others began to show grudging curiosity about whether he could actually pull off such a challenging feat. "Remember," Hayes called out as Marcus waded into the surf, "this is about more than individual pride. Mission success depends on every team member performing at their peak when it matters most." Marcus nodded, understanding the weight of responsibility that came with his confidence. As the cold Pacific water rose around his legs, he began to focus his mind on the challenge ahead: 2 miles of open ocean swimming followed by precision marksmanship that could determine the success or failure of a critical mission. The Pacific Ocean stretched endlessly before Marcus as he settled into his swimming rhythm, the weight of the rifle case creating an unfamiliar drag that required constant adjustment to his stroke technique. The water temperature was roughly 68 degrees, cold enough to sap energy over time but not immediately debilitating. Each wave that crashed over his head served as a reminder of the challenge ahead: 2 miles through increasingly rough seas while carrying 40 pounds of additional equipment. Behind him on the beach, his teammates had organized into an efficient observation team. Lieutenant Morrison tracked his progress through high-powered binoculars while Chief Martinez monitored his vital signs through a waterproof fitness tracker that transmitted data back to shore. The technology allowed them to assess his physical condition in real time, watching for signs of exhaustion or distress that might compromise his shooting ability later. Heart rate is elevated but stable, Martinez called out, studying the data stream on her tablet. He's maintaining a pace of about 45 strokes per minute. That's sustainable for this distance if he can keep his breathing steady. Gunnery Sergeant Torres stood beside her, his experienced eye evaluating Marcus's technique with the critical assessment that had kept countless SEALs alive over the years. Torres had seen too many operators pushed beyond their limits, and he knew the subtle signs that indicated when someone was approaching their breaking point. His stroke is still efficient, Torres observed. But that rifle case is definitely affecting his buoyancy. He's having to work harder to maintain proper body position in the water. As Marcus pushed through the first quarter mile, he could feel the cumulative effect of the additional weight. The rifle case, despite being designed for water operations, created drag and shifted his center of gravity in ways that his countless hours of training couldn't completely overcome. Every stroke required slightly more effort than usual, and he knew that this increased energy expenditure would compound over the full distance. The ocean itself seemed determined to test his resolve. Swells that had appeared manageable from shore proved more challenging once he was fully committed to the swim. The 3-foot waves mentioned in the weather report were occasionally punctuated by larger sets that forced him to adjust his breathing pattern and stroke timing to avoid taking water into his lungs. Wave height is increasing, reported Petty Officer Kim, consulting his weather instruments. We're seeing sets up to 4 feet now, with wind picking up from the southwest. That's going to make the return swim even more challenging. Commander Hayes listened to the updates with growing concern. The test swim was revealing variables that hadn't been fully considered during mission planning. If conditions continue to deteriorate, the operational swim could prove even more demanding than originally anticipated. Marcus felt the rhythm of the ocean as he moved through his second quarter mile, his body automatically adjusting to the irregular pattern of waves and swells. Years of ocean swimming had taught him to work with the water rather than fighting against it, conserving energy by timing his strokes to match the wave patterns whenever possible. The rifle case remained a constant presence on his back, its weight shifting slightly with each stroke and requiring continuous micro-adjustments to maintain proper form. Marcus had trained with weighted packs before, but the unique shape and distribution of the rifle case created challenges that couldn't be perfectly replicated in practice. His stroke rate is dropping slightly, Martinez observed, noting the change in his biometric data. Heart rate is still in the target zone, but he's working harder to maintain forward progress. That's expected at this point in the swim. Rodriguez shook his head as he watched Marcus's steady progress through the binoculars. Despite his earlier skepticism, he had to admit that his teammate was performing better than expected. The swim was clearly demanding, but Marcus appeared to be managing the challenge with characteristic determination and technical skill. I've got to admit, he's making it look easier than I thought it would be, Rodriguez said grudgingly. But we're only halfway through. The real test comes when fatigue starts to set in during the final mile. As if responding to Rodriguez's observation, Marcus felt the first genuine signs of fatigue as he approached the 1-mile mark. His shoulders burned with the accumulated strain of maintaining stroke rhythm while compensating for the rifle case, and his breathing required more conscious control to remain efficient. This was the critical point that separated recreational swimmers from military operators. Anyone in decent physical condition could swim a mile with proper training. But pushing through the fatigue barrier to maintain performance over longer distances required mental toughness that went beyond physical conditioning. Marcus drew on years of grueling training as he pushed into the second mile, remembering the countless sessions where instructors had pushed him and his classmates beyond what they thought possible. The SEAL motto, "The only easy day was yesterday," took on new meaning as he fought through the mounting fatigue while maintaining focus on the precision shooting that would follow. He's slowing down more noticeably now, Torres observed, his tone reflecting professional assessment rather than criticism. But his technique is still solid. That's what matters most for long-distance swimming. As long as he maintains efficient form, he can push through the fatigue. The ocean seemed to sense Marcus's growing exhaustion and responded with increasingly challenging conditions. Swells that had been manageable earlier now required more effort to navigate, and occasional whitecaps indicated that wind speed was continuing to increase as forecast. Commander Hayes made a strategic decision as she watched the test unfold.
Kim, I want you to track weather conditions for the next 6 hours. If this pattern continues, we may need to adjust our operational timeline.
The flexibility to adapt plans based on real-world conditions was a hallmark of successful special operations. Hayes understood that rigid adherence to original plans could be just as dangerous as poor planning itself. Marcus could feel his body beginning to protest as he entered the final half-mile of the swim. His shoulders ached with accumulated fatigue, his breathing required more conscious control, and the rifle case seemed to grow heavier with each stroke. But his mind remained focused on the bigger picture, proving to his team that he could handle this challenge while maintaining the precision shooting that might be required for mission success. The shoreline gradually grew larger ahead of him, but Marcus knew that reaching the beach was only half the challenge. The real test would come when he had to transition immediately from the exhausting swim to precision marksmanship that demanded steady hands and controlled breathing. Final quarter mile, Morrison announced to the team. Time to set up the shooting range. We need everything ready for immediate transition when he reaches shore. The team moved with practiced efficiency to establish the portable shooting range that would test Marcus's ability to make precision shots immediately after the demanding swim. Targets were positioned at various distances, simulating the challenging shooting scenarios that might be encountered during actual operations.
Martinez prepared medical equipment in case the test revealed problems that required immediate attention.
While the swim was being conducted in controlled conditions, the combination of cold water exposure, physical exhaustion, and immediate transition to high-stress shooting created risks that needed to be managed carefully. Targets are set at 100, 300, and 500 meters, reported Rodriguez as he finished positioning the final target stand. We'll test his accuracy at all three distances to get a complete picture of how the swim affects his shooting ability.
Torres nodded approvingly at the test setup. Those distances will tell us everything we need to know.
If he can shoot accurately at 500 meters after that swim, he can handle anything we're likely to encounter on the actual mission. As Marcus approached the final 200 meters of the swim, his teammates could see the physical toll that the challenge had taken. His stroke rate had decreased noticeably, and his breathing pattern showed signs of the sustained effort required to complete the distance while carrying the additional weight. But there was something else visible in his approach that impressed the watching SEALs, an unwavering determination that spoke to mental toughness that couldn't be taught or faked. Marcus was clearly exhausted, but his technique remained sound and his forward progress never faltered. "He's going to make it," Kim said with growing respect. "I didn't think anyone could maintain that pace for 2 miles with full gear, but he's actually going to pull it off." Hayes felt a mixture of relief and concern as she watched Marcus approach the shore. The successful completion of the swim demonstrated impressive physical capability, but the real test was yet to come. Precision shooting while exhausted and dealing with adrenaline from the challenging swim would reveal whether his confidence was justified. Marcus felt the ocean floor beneath his feet as he reached the shallow water near shore, his legs shaky from the sustained swimming effort but functional enough to carry him onto the beach. The transition from horizontal swimming position to vertical standing required a moment of adjustment as his body adapted to the change in orientation and the return of full gravitational force. "Time," called out Morrison, checking his stopwatch.
1 hour, 37 minutes.
That's within acceptable parameters considering the conditions. The time was slower than Marcus's training sessions in calm water, but still respectable given the wave conditions and additional equipment. More importantly, he had completed the full distance without requiring assistance or showing signs of serious distress. Martinez quickly checked his vital signs as Marcus stripped off his wetsuit and prepared to transition to the shooting phase of the test. His heart rate was elevated but not dangerously so, and his core temperature remained within normal ranges despite the extended cold water exposure. "Vitals are good," Martinez reported. "Elevated heart rate and some signs of fatigue, but nothing that should affect motor function significantly. The real question is whether he can control the adrenaline and exhaustion well enough for precision shooting." Marcus felt the familiar weight of his rifle as he removed it from the waterproof case, his hands automatically performing the detailed inspection that every marksman conducted before shooting. The weapon had remained completely dry during the swim, and all systems appeared to function normally despite the challenging transport conditions. The transition from swimmer to marksman required a mental shift that Marcus had practiced countless times in training. He needed to calm his elevated heart rate, control his breathing, and achieve the state of focused concentration that precision shooting demanded. The fact that his teammates were watching critically added another layer of pressure to an already challenging situation.
"Range is clear and targets are set," Torres announced.
Take your time to get settled, but remember that in a real operation, you might not have the luxury of extended preparation time. The comment was a reminder that the test needed to reflect realistic operational conditions as closely as possible. While Marcus needed enough time to properly prepare his weapon and shooting position, excessive preparation time would make the test less meaningful as an assessment tool. Marcus nodded his understanding as he moved to the shooting position, his body still processing the effects of the demanding swim while his mind began to focus on the precision shooting challenge ahead. The next few minutes would determine whether his confidence in his abilities was justified, or whether his teammates' concerns about the physical demands of the mission approach were well-founded. The portable shooting range stretched out before him, with targets positioned at distances that would test his accuracy under the most demanding conditions. As Marcus settled into his shooting position and began to control his breathing, he felt the familiar calm that always preceded his best shooting performances. The exhaustion from the swim was real, but his mental preparation and years of training were about to be put to the ultimate test. Marcus settled into his prone shooting position, feeling the sand beneath his elbows as he established a stable platform for precision marksmanship. His breathing was still elevated from the exhausting swim, but years of training had taught him to use controlled breathing techniques to steady his heart rate and prepare for accurate shooting. The rifle felt familiar in his hands despite the challenging circumstances, its weight and balance as familiar as his own heartbeat. The first target stood 100 meters away, a relatively close distance that would test his basic accuracy while managing post-exercise fatigue. Marcus knew that his teammates were watching critically, evaluating not just his shooting performance but his ability to transition quickly from intense physical exertion to the mental focus required for precision marksmanship. "First shot when ready," called out Torres, his stopwatch ready to record both accuracy and timing. The gunnery sergeant's experienced eye would catch any signs of hesitation or uncertainty that might indicate compromised performance due to the demanding swim. Marcus cycled through his pre-shot routine with mechanical precision, each step designed to eliminate variables and maximize accuracy. He checked his sight alignment, confirmed his target picture, and began the controlled breathing pattern that would allow him to break the shot at the perfect moment between heartbeats. The rifle barked once, its familiar recoil pattern absorbed smoothly by Marcus's shooting position. Through his scope, he could see the impact point clearly, a hit in the center ring that would have been acceptable even under ideal shooting conditions. "Center hit at 100, reported Morrison through binoculars. Clean shot, no hesitation. Time from position to shot was 12 seconds. The first successful shot helped calm some of the team's concerns, but they knew that 100 meters was well within the capability of any competent marksman. The real test would come at longer distances where the effects of fatigue and elevated heart rate would become more significant factors in shot placement. Rodriguez adjusted the spotting scope to focus on the 300-meter target. Next target is set. Wind is light but variable from the southwest. You'll need to read conditions carefully at this distance. Marcus nodded, understanding that the increased distance would magnify any effects of fatigue or adrenaline on his shooting accuracy. 300 meters required precise calculation of wind effects and bullet drop, along with the steady hand control that could be compromised by physical exhaustion. He adjusted his position slightly to align with the distant target, checking his scope settings and confirming his range estimation. The target appeared smaller through his optics, requiring more precise hold and trigger control to achieve center hits. The second shot came after a longer preparation period as Marcus read wind conditions and calculated the necessary adjustments for the increased distance. His breathing control was more deliberate now, working to overcome the elevated heart rate that was a natural result of the demanding swim. "Hit, upper center ring," Morrison called out after studying the target through high-powered binoculars. "Solid shot at 300 meters. His accuracy is holding up well despite the physical stress." Two successful shots had impressed the watching team members, but Marcus knew that the most challenging test was yet to come. The 500-meter target would require everything he had learned about precision shooting, wind reading, and mental focus, all while managing the physical effects of swimming 2 miles in rough ocean conditions. Chief Martinez continued monitoring his vital signs through the wireless sensors, noting that his heart rate was gradually returning to normal levels as his body recovered from the swim. "Heart rate is dropping steadily," she reported. "He's managing the transition from physical exertion to precision shooting better than expected." Commander Hayes watched the proceedings with growing interest, recognizing that the test was providing valuable information about operational capabilities under challenging conditions. The ability to maintain shooting accuracy after demanding physical exertion was a rare skill that could prove crucial during actual missions.
500-meter target is ready, Torres announced.
This is the distance that separates good shooters from exceptional ones, especially under these conditions. Marcus felt the familiar weight of expectation as he prepared for the longest and most demanding shot of the test. 500 meters required absolute precision in every aspect of shooting technique, from reading environmental conditions to controlling minute muscle movements during trigger manipulation. The distant target was barely visible to the naked eye, appearing as a small dot against the coastal hillside that served as the test range backdrop. Through his scope, Marcus could see the target clearly, but the increased magnification also revealed the subtle movements caused by atmospheric conditions and his own elevated heart rate. Wind conditions at 500 meters were more complex than at shorter distances, requiring Marcus to observe multiple indicators and calculate the cumulative effect of air movement across the entire bullet flight path. He studied grass movement, dust patterns, and the behavior of distant trees to build a complete picture of wind conditions. His breathing routine became more deliberate as he prepared for the critical shot, working to achieve the perfect natural respiratory pause where his body would be most stable. Years of training had taught him to recognize this moment and execute his shot at the precise instant when all variables aligned. The rifle's report echoed across the coastal range as Marcus sent his third shot toward the distant target. Through his scope, he could see the bullet's impact before Morrison's confirmation reached him through binoculars. Dead center hit at 500 meters, Morrison called out, genuine surprise evident in his voice. That's a shot most guys couldn't make on their best day, let alone after swimming 2 miles with full gear. The successful long-distance shot marked a turning point in the team's assessment of Marcus's capabilities. What had begun as skepticism about his ability to handle the physical and mental demands of the mission approach was gradually transforming into recognition of exceptional performance under challenging conditions. But Torres wasn't finished testing Marcus's abilities. That was impressive, the gunnery sergeant acknowledged. But 3 shots don't tell the whole story. In a real operation, you might need to engage multiple targets quickly, or make follow-up shots under time pressure. The observation led to an impromptu expansion of the test as Torres and Morrison quickly repositioned targets to simulate a more complex engagement scenario. Instead of single precision shots at known distances, Marcus would now face multiple targets at varying ranges with time constraints that more closely resembled actual operational demands.
New scenario, Torres announced. 5 targets at ranges from 200 to 500 meters. You'll have 2 minutes to engage all targets with acceptable accuracy. This tests not just precision, but target acquisition and engagement speed under fatigue. Marcus nodded his acceptance of the enhanced challenge, understanding that the additional testing would provide more comprehensive data about his post-swim shooting capabilities. Managing multiple targets under time pressure would test different skills than single precision shots, requiring rapid target transitions and consistent accuracy across varying distances. Kim positioned himself with timing equipment while Rodriguez and Martinez took positions to observe target impacts at different ranges. The team's impromptu expansion of the test demonstrated their growing interest in understanding the full extent of Marcus's capabilities under challenging conditions. Targets are set and timing starts on your first shot, Torres announced. Remember, this isn't just about hitting targets, it's about proving you can perform at operational standards when it matters most. The comment reminded everyone present that the test wasn't just about individual achievement, but about mission readiness and team capability. Marcus's performance would help determine not just his own role in upcoming operations, but the tactical approaches that the entire team could consider for future missions. Marcus surveyed the target array quickly, mentally prioritizing engagement order based on range and target difficulty. The systematic approach to multiple target engagement was another skill developed through countless hours of training, but this was the first time he had tested it immediately after such demanding physical exertion. His first shot engaged the closest target at 200 meters, a relatively easy shot that allowed him to establish rhythm and confirm his rifle's zero after the transportation stress of the swim. The impact was immediate and central, providing confidence for the more challenging shots that followed. Target acquisition for the second engagement required a significant elevation adjustment as Marcus transitioned to a 400-meter target positioned on higher ground. His scope adjustments were smooth and confident, reflecting the automatic muscle memory developed through repetitive training under various conditions. The second shot found its mark cleanly, followed rapidly by smooth target transitions that demonstrated Marcus's ability to maintain shooting rhythm even while managing fatigue and time pressure. Each shot placement remained within acceptable accuracy standards despite the demanding circumstances.
45 seconds elapsed, 3 targets down, Kim reported, tracking both timing and accuracy metrics that would factor into the overall performance assessment. The fourth target presented the most challenging shot of the sequence, a 500-meter engagement that required significant windage adjustment due to changing atmospheric conditions. Marcus took slightly more time for this shot, balancing speed requirements against the precision needed for long-range accuracy. His shot broke cleanly and impacted center mass on the distant target, drawing approving nods from his watching teammates. The ability to maintain long-range accuracy while managing time pressure and physical fatigue demonstrated exceptional shooting skills that went beyond basic marksmanship training. Final target, Torres called out, checking his own stopwatch.
30 seconds remaining.
The last engagement was back to a moderate 300-meter target, positioned to test Marcus's ability to make a good shot while working against time pressure. With only seconds remaining, the temptation to rush the shot could easily compromise accuracy and negate the success of the previous engagements. Marcus forced himself to maintain proper shooting rhythm despite the time constraint, understanding that a rushed shot that missed its target would be worse than a slightly late shot that found its mark. His trigger break was smooth and controlled, sending the final round toward its target with the same precision as the previous shots. All targets engaged successfully with 1 minute, 52 seconds total time, Kim announced as the final shot impacted home. That's exceptional performance by any standard, but particularly impressive given the circumstances. The comprehensive shooting test had answered the team's questions about Marcus's ability to maintain operational effectiveness after the demanding swim. His accuracy had remained consistent across all distances and target types, demonstrating that his confidence in his capabilities had been justified by actual performance. Commander Hayes approached Marcus as he cleared his rifle and began to pack his equipment. The test had provided valuable information about operational capabilities that would influence mission planning and tactical approach decisions.
Outstanding performance, Hayes said simply.
You've demonstrated that the swim approach is not only feasible, but potentially advantageous given your ability to maintain shooting effectiveness afterward. The acknowledgement from the mission commander carried significant weight, representing official validation of Marcus's capabilities and the tactical approach he had advocated. But Marcus also understood that the test had been conducted under controlled conditions that might not perfectly reflect the stresses and challenges of actual operational environments. The test conditions were favorable, Marcus replied honestly.
A real mission could present additional challenges that might affect performance differently. His willingness to acknowledge limitations even while celebrating success demonstrated the professional attitude that had earned him respect among his teammates. Realistic assessment of capabilities and limitations was crucial for mission planning and operational safety.
Rodriguez walked over to examine the targets that had been retrieved from the various shooting positions. The tight shot groups at all distances provided physical evidence of Marcus's exceptional shooting performance under challenging conditions. I've got to admit, I was wrong about this, Rodriguez said, studying the target results.
I didn't think anyone could maintain this level of accuracy after that swim. You've definitely proven your point.
The acknowledgement from one of his more skeptical teammates meant a great deal to Marcus, representing acceptance based on demonstrated performance rather than mere confidence. The team dynamic was already shifting as members adjusted their assessment of his capabilities and the mission approaches that those capabilities made possible. 3 hours after sunset, the operational mission commenced under conditions that were even more challenging than the test swim had been. The Pacific Ocean churned with 4-foot swells driven by increasing wind, and periodic rain squalls reduced visibility to near zero. Marcus felt the familiar weight of his rifle case as he entered the water alongside his teammates, but now the stakes were real. Intelligence gathered during this mission could save hundreds of lives in future operations. The team insertion went exactly as planned, with Marcus leading the swimming formation through the dark waters while his teammates followed in tactical formation behind him. The knowledge gained during the afternoon test had transformed team dynamics completely. Where once there had been skepticism about the swim approach, there was now confidence based on proven performance under demanding conditions. 2 kilometers to target area, Morrison's voice came through their waterproof communications system. Current conditions are within acceptable parameters, but we need to maintain tight formation in these swells. Marcus felt the ocean's power as he established his swimming rhythm, the darkness adding psychological pressure that hadn't existed during the daylight test. Swimming at night required different skills than daylight operations: navigation by compass and stars, heightened awareness of team positions, and constant vigilance for unexpected hazards that might not be visible until too late. The rifle case felt heavier in the rough seas, its weight and bulk creating challenges that were magnified by the poor visibility and irregular wave patterns. But Marcus's confidence remained high, bolstered by the afternoon's successful demonstration and his teammates' newfound trust in his capabilities. Behind him, the team maintained formation with practiced efficiency despite the challenging conditions. Each SEAL was an expert swimmer capable of handling demanding ocean conditions, but they all recognized that Marcus was setting a pace and maintaining navigation accuracy that exceeded normal standards. Navigation Checkpoint 1, Marcus reported quietly into his communications system as they passed the first waypoint of their planned route. On course and on schedule despite sea conditions. The precision of his navigation in rough seas with limited visibility impressed his teammates, who were discovering that Marcus's exceptional performance extended beyond marksmanship to include maritime skills that rivaled the team's best swimmers. His combination of endurance, technical skill, and mental toughness was proving invaluable under operational conditions. As they approached the halfway point of the swim, the weather conditions deteriorated further with increasing wind and larger swells that occasionally broke over the swimmers' heads. The challenging conditions tested not just physical capabilities, but the mental toughness required to maintain focus and performance when every stroke required extra effort. "Sea state is degrading," reported Chief Martinez through the team communications net. "But we're still within operational parameters. Marcus is maintaining excellent pace despite the conditions." The acknowledgement from the team medic carried special significance, as Martinez was responsible for monitoring team safety and would abort the mission if conditions became too dangerous. Her confidence in Marcus's performance helped maintain team morale as they pushed through the most challenging portion of the swim. Marcus felt the cumulative effects of the demanding swim as they entered the final kilometer, but his mental preparation and physical conditioning allowed him to maintain focus on the precision swimming and navigation that the mission required. The afternoon test had proven his capabilities to his teammates, but now he was proving them to himself under real operational conditions. The target area emerged from the darkness as they approached the coastline, exactly where intelligence reports had indicated they would find suitable observation positions. Marcus's navigation had been flawless despite the challenging conditions, bringing the team to precisely the right location for their surveillance mission. "Target area confirmed," Morrison whispered as they reached the shallow water near shore. Outstanding navigation under these conditions. Moving to observation positions now. The team moved efficiently from water to land, their movements coordinated and silent despite the exhausting swim they had just completed. Marcus felt his legs adjust to supporting his full weight again as he moved toward his designated sniper position, but his focus was already shifting from swimmer to marksman as the mission entered its next phase. His rifle emerged from its waterproof case in perfect condition, all systems dry and functional despite the challenging transportation through rough seas. The weapon felt familiar and reassuring in his hands as he began the detailed inspection that every professional marksman performed before assuming operational duties. The observation position offered excellent fields of fire across the target area where intelligence suggested the high-value target would appear within the next 2 hours. Marcus began setting up his shooting position with practiced efficiency, using night vision equipment to identify potential target locations and calculate ranges for various engagement scenarios. "Overwatch position established," Marcus reported quietly. "Good visibility across all probable target areas. Range cards complete for distances from 400 to 800 meters." The professional competence in his voice reflected the confidence that came from proven capability under challenging conditions. His teammates no longer questioned whether he could perform after the demanding swim. The afternoon test and the flawless navigation to the target area had answered those doubts definitively. Torres positioned himself as Marcus's spotter, using high-powered night vision equipment to scan the target area for signs of movement or activity. The partnership between sniper and spotter was crucial for mission success, requiring absolute trust and seamless communication under pressure. "Wind conditions are variable but manageable," Torres reported after studying environmental factors that would affect long-range shooting. "Visibility is good with current night vision equipment. We're ready for target acquisition when the opportunity presents itself." The waiting began as the team settled into their observation positions, each member focused on their assigned sector of responsibility while maintaining communications discipline that would prevent compromise of their concealed positions. Marcus controlled his breathing and heart rate, maintaining the physical and mental state required for precision shooting when the moment arrived. Hours passed with tense vigilance as the team monitored the target area for signs of the expected activity. Marcus remained motionless in his shooting position, his rifle trained on the most likely target location while his mind stayed focused on the shooting fundamentals that would determine mission success. Movement in Sector 3, reported Kim from his communication monitoring position.
Multiple vehicles approaching from the north. This could be our target.
The team's alertness sharpened as the intelligence they had risked so much to gather began to unfold before them. Marcus adjusted his rifle's position slightly to cover the area where the vehicles would likely stop, checking his scope settings and confirming his range estimation for the probable target location. Target vehicle confirmed, Morrison whispered after studying the approaching convoy through night vision equipment.
High-value target is in the second vehicle. This is our primary objective.
Marcus felt his pulse steady as he entered the focused mental state that preceded his best shooting performances. All the training, all the preparation, and all the challenges of reaching this position converged into this critical moment where precision marksmanship could provide intelligence that might save hundreds of lives. The convoy stopped exactly where intelligence had predicted, positioning the target vehicle in Marcus's primary engagement zone at a range of approximately 500 meters. Through his night vision scope, he could clearly identify individual figures as they exited the vehicles and moved toward a building that appeared to be their destination. Target acquired, Marcus reported quietly.
Clear shot opportunity at 500 meters. Request permission to engage surveillance protocol.
Commander Hayes's voice came through the communications system with calm authority.
Surveillance authorized. Gather all possible intelligence on personnel, equipment, and activities. Do not engage unless specifically ordered.
The mission was intelligence gathering rather than direct action, requiring Marcus to use his exceptional marksmanship skills for observation and documentation rather than elimination of targets.
His steady hands and precise optics would provide the detailed surveillance that conventional intelligence methods couldn't achieve.
Through his high-powered scope, Marcus began documenting every detail of the target's activities, noting personnel numbers, equipment types, and behavioral patterns that intelligence analysts would later use to assess threats and plan future operations. His shooting skills were being used for observation rather than destruction, but the precision required was identical. Target is meeting with unknown personnel, Marcus reported, his voice steady despite the intensity of the surveillance.
Documenting faces and equipment for later identification.
Clear view of all activities in the target area. The surveillance continued for over an hour as Marcus maintained perfect steadiness in his shooting position, gathering intelligence through his scope while his teammates monitored communications and provided security. His ability to remain motionless and focused for extended periods was proving as valuable as his marksmanship accuracy. Mission complete, Hayes finally announced as the target convoy prepared to depart. Intelligence gathered exceeds expectations.
All personnel prepare for extraction.
The successful completion of the intelligence mission validated every aspect of the approach that Marcus had advocated. The swim insertion had allowed them to reach their observation positions undetected, and his shooting skills had provided surveillance capabilities that exceeded the mission's original objectives. As the team prepared for the challenging swim back to their extraction point, Marcus carefully secured his rifle in its waterproof case while reviewing the mental notes he had taken during the surveillance. The intelligence he had gathered would be thoroughly debriefed once they returned to base. Outstanding work, Torres said quietly as they prepared to enter the water.
Your shooting skills provided intelligence that we couldn't have gathered any other way.
The swim approach was definitely the right call. The acknowledgement from the experienced gunnery sergeant represented complete acceptance of Marcus's capabilities and judgment. What had begun as skepticism about his ability to handle the physical demands of the mission had transformed into recognition of exceptional professional competence. The return swim proved even more challenging than the insertion, as worsening weather conditions created larger swells and stronger currents that tested every member of the team. But Marcus again led the formation with precise navigation and steady pace, demonstrating that his performance during the test swim hadn't been a one-time achievement. Extraction point in sight, Marcus reported as they approached the pickup location where a support boat waited to recover the team.
Navigation on target despite challenging sea conditions.
The successful completion of both the intelligence mission and the demanding water operations marked a turning point in Marcus's relationship with his team. He had proven definitively that quiet confidence backed by exceptional skill could be just as effective as louder demonstrations of capability. As they climbed aboard the extraction boat, Marcus reflected on the events that had transformed him from a team member whose capabilities were questioned into one whose judgment and skills were completely trusted. The journey had required him to prove himself under the most demanding conditions, but the result was acceptance and respect that couldn't have been achieved any other way. Commander Hayes approached Marcus as the boat headed back to base, her expression reflecting both professional satisfaction with the mission's success and personal recognition of his exceptional performance throughout the operation. "Your performance tonight exceeded all expectations," Hayes said simply. "The intelligence we gathered will have strategic impact on future operations. You've proven that unconventional approaches can achieve exceptional results when backed by the right skills and preparation." The recognition from the mission commander was gratifying, but Marcus felt even greater satisfaction from the knowledge that his teammates now trusted his judgment and capabilities completely. The skeptical voices that had questioned his ability to handle the mission's physical demands had been replaced by recognition that he brought unique capabilities to the team. Rodriguez appeared beside him as the base came into view, his expression showing the respect that came from witnessing exceptional performance under pressure. "I owe you an apology," Rodriguez said honestly. "I was wrong to doubt your abilities. You've proven yourself in ways that most of us never have to face." The acknowledgement meant more to Marcus than official recognition or commendations, representing acceptance from peers whose judgment he valued and respected. As the extraction boat reached the harbor and the successful mission came to its conclusion, Marcus knew that his place on the team was no longer questioned. It was earned through performance that spoke louder than any words could express.